I recommend that people injured in truck accidents limit their direct communication with the trucking company or its insurance carrier as much as possible. There is too much opportunity to say the wrong thing or sign the wrong document and seriously damage your case. Here are some important do's and don'ts after a semi-crash. Do cooperate with the law enforcement investigation. If a truck driver caused your wreck, you want to do everything possible to ensure that truck driver is ticketed and convicted. If the investigating officer calls you, make sure that you take that call. If you know the names of any witnesses to the crash, make sure you pass on those names to law enforcement. Most importantly, if you get a summons to appear in traffic court, you want to make sure that you show up. Prosecutors often dismiss traffic charges if important witnesses do not show up for court. The one catch to that piece of advice is that I recommend that you consult with a truck accident attorney before you must testify in traffic court. If a tractor-trailer collision causes severe injury or death, it is important to have your own attorney present in traffic court to advise you about your rights. Do not rely solely on the law enforcement investigation if the truck accident caused severe injury or death. Over the past 25 years, I have read many law enforcement accident reports that describe vehicle damage inaccurately or miss the names of important eyewitnesses. Local law enforcement is often overworked and undertrained, particularly when it comes to tractor-trailer crashes. A modern semi is often equipped with dashboard cameras, GPS tracking, and radar detection equipment. This technical data can be missed by a local law enforcement officer who does not know what to ask for. That is why in any truck accident resulting in death or severe injury, you should consult with an experienced truck accident attorney to decide whether to hire an expert to do an independent vehicle inspection. At the very least, you should keep your own list of witness names and make sure that your own photos are taken of the accident scene and all vehicles involved. Do get medical treatment as soon as possible after the crash. The very first thing you should do after being involved in any kind of traffic accident is to go to the doctor, even if you don't think you were seriously injured. Injury symptoms don't always show up right away. Sometimes it can be hours, days, or even weeks before you realize how badly you were hurt in a crash. It is vitally important that you get checked out as soon as possible so a doctor can start recording your post-crash symptoms. As far as the trucking company is concerned, your word alone that you are in pain following a tractor-trailer collision isn't good enough. You need records from medical professionals that document how your health has changed after the crash. And don't just go to the doctor once. Keep getting medical treatment until your injuries are fully healed. A truck accident is not the time to try to be tough and push through any lingering pain. If your medical records don't fully document your crash injuries and pain, the trucking company will not offer you a settlement amount that fairly compensates you for what you're going through. Because the trucking company will go through your medical records with a fine-tooth comb, it is also important that you follow all treatment recommendations. If a doctor prescribes medication, make sure you get that prescription filled. If a physical therapist advises you to do home exercises, make sure you can truthfully say at your next appointment that you did all of those exercises. If any medical provider tells you to come back in a certain amount of time if you're still having problems, make sure you go back if you are not fully healed. Otherwise, the trucking company will take the position that you were fully healed after your last appointment because you never went back for more treatment. Do not rely solely on medical providers to document all of your crash-related injuries. If the truck accident caused any cuts, bruises, scrapes, or scratches, it is important that you take your own photos of those injuries. Doctors can describe cuts, bruises, scrapes, or scratches in their medical records, but sometimes a photograph can tell a much more powerful story of what the crash did to you. Don't just take close-up photos. Also take photos from different angles so it is clear what parts of your body were injured. It is also important that you report all your post-crash symptoms to your medical providers, even if they don't seem concerned about them at first. Doctors tend to focus first on the most obvious injury or whatever injury they can treat immediately. Sometimes lingering problems like headaches, body aches, or shooting pains can be signs of serious injuries, but they don't always make it into your medical record unless you take the time to point them out to your medical provider at every visit. I tell my truck accident clients that now is not the time to suffer in silence. If you believe that you should be fairly compensated for a post-collision injury, you need to make sure you bring all of your injuries to your medical provider's attention. Do limit communication with the other side's insurance company. If you were injured by a truck driver, you will likely get a call from the trucking company or the trucking company's insurance carrier. The people who call are often coached to sound caring and empathetic so that they can gain the trust of injury victims or their families. They will often say things like, "We take full responsibility for this crash," or "We want to pay for your medical treatment, but we can't start until we get some information from you." There are two things you should know before you have this conversation. One, no matter what they tell you, in Iowa, you have 2 years from the date of the truck accident to settle your case or file your lawsuit. You will not lose anything if you tell the caller that you are hurting, that you are treating, and that you have nothing else to say to them until you're feeling better, as long as you act before the 2-year anniversary of your crash. 2, talking to the trucking company's insurance is not going to get you a fair settlement any faster. The trucking company will only pay an insurance settlement if it can write you one check and be done with you forever. If you want full compensation, you should not settle your injury case until you are discharged from all medical treatment and are fully recovered from the crash. I recommend that people injured in truck accidents limit their direct communication with the trucking company or its insurance carrier as much as possible. For the reasons that I will explain next, there is too much opportunity to say the wrong thing or sign the wrong document and seriously damage your case. Do not sign any insurance company paperwork or give a recorded statement without consulting with an attorney first. The caller from the trucking company or its insurance carrier will typically ask for 2 things. 1, they will want to take a recorded statement from you about the crash. 2, they will want you to sign medical release paperwork. Both requests are not as innocent as they will try to make them sound. Insurance representatives are trained to use recorded statements to get damaging admissions that will hurt your case and reduce the trucking company's responsibility. I never let my truck accident clients give a recorded statement unless I am present and can make sure that the questions are fair and that my client is given the opportunity to fully answer. If a company representative asks you to give a recorded statement after a truck wreck, it is usually a sign that you should consult with an experienced truck accident lawyer first. Signing a medical release does not mean that the trucking company will immediately start paying your crash-related medical bills. Instead, companies use these medical releases to start snooping around your medical history to see if they can blame any of your post-crash problems on something other than the crash and your injuries from the crash. I try to protect my truck accident clients by reviewing their medical records first, before they are turned over to the other side, so that any problems in those records can be addressed without hurting my client's case. Do attempt to return to work as soon as you can. If a truck driver causes a wreck and your injuries from that wreck prevent you from working, the trucking company or its insurance carrier will ultimately be responsible for reimbursing you for your lost earnings. Unfortunately, just like with your crash-related medical bills, the other side is not legally required to pay you this reimbursement until you are ready to settle once and for all. In other words, they are not required to pay you for your lost earnings while you are healing. That is why it is important that you return to work as soon as you can, particularly if you do not have enough savings to cover your living expenses while you heal. People often ask me if it will hurt their case if they return to work too soon after a truck accident. I always give the same answer. If your doctors think that you are healthy enough to try to work, and if your employer thinks you can safely attempt to return to work, it's always best to try to work. That way the trucking company cannot claim that you are trying to milk your injuries to get a bigger settlement. Sometimes you will get back to work and your doctors or your employer will realize that it is too soon for you to come back. It is always better for your truck accident case if someone else makes that decision rather than you. Do not miss work or cancel jobs without a doctor's note. Like with your crash-related medical bills, the trucking company and its insurance carrier will not pay for lost earnings that are not fully documented. They will not take your word for the fact that you couldn't work, and they will not take your word for how much money you lost. Full documentation for lost earnings typically involves a doctor's note recommending that you take time off of work because of your injuries, or a letter from your employer explaining that they have no work for you until you're fully healed from your injuries. The same applies if you're self-employed. Try to get any job offers or bids in writing, even if you must turn them down because of your accident-related injuries. Keep in mind that a large lost earnings claim will require you to turn over tax returns and other business paperwork to prove what you were earning both before and after the truck accident. If you have any questions about the key first steps to getting a fair settlement for a truck accident, call my firm, RSH Legal, at 1-800-433-0283. It is a free call for anyone who's been injured in a tractor-trailer crash.